If you're a dirt biker, then you know that having a good spark plug is key to keeping your bike running smoothly. But how often do you need to change your spark plugs? And what signs indicate that it's time for a new set? In this video, we'll answer all those questions and more. So, with a little bit of research, I found that dirt bike spark plugs can last over 8,000 miles to 10,000 miles before changing them. But this doesn't mean you shouldn't check on them after 4,000 miles. That's because there are things that may hinder their lifespan. So let's dive deeper and see what affects their lifespan. What affects the lifespan of dirt bike spark plugs? There are a couple of things that may affect your spark plug's lifespan. 1. Riding in dusty areas. If your bike is used for riding off-road in dusty or sandy areas, then this may come into play. You'll notice that these types of environments largely affect the spark plugs. This is due to the fact that they're constantly exposed to dirt and debris which can build up on them and affect their performance. How to check dirt bike spark plugs. Aside from knowing when to change them, another question is how often you should be checking them in the first place. Dirt bike spark plugs can go unchecked for a while before causing any damage, so it's good to just know when they need to be checked and that you don't need to check them every ride. You should be checking your spark plugs at least once every couple of rides. However, if you notice any signs, then it's best to check them sooner. 2. The weather. It's important to note that the type of environment you're riding in may also play into your spark plug's lifespan. If you ride in an area with changing seasons, then this may affect how often you need to change them. When the seasons are changing is when it becomes most important to check on these factors. 3. How hard you ride. Another factor that plays into the lifespan of dirt bike spark plugs is how much work they have to do while running your engine. This goes back to us talking about checking your spark plugs after every couple of rides. If you run your bike harder or for longer periods of time, then this affects the spark plug's performance and therefore their lifespan accordingly. How to maintain dirt bike spark plugs. Maintaining your dirt bike spark plugs is pretty simple. Although if you ride in dusty or sandy areas, it's important to take extra care of them. You may want to invest in a special tool that cleans out the gunk from your spark plug. This way, they'll last you a very long time and won't be as affected by environmental factors. But aside from just checking on their status after every couple of rides and making sure you're maintaining them correctly, there are things that will affect how long they last, such as riding off-road or hard longer than usual. Knowing when to change dirt bike spark plugs is as easy as checking them every ride and changing them once they don't meet certain criteria anymore. What happens if you keep using worn-out spark plugs? There are a couple of different things that can happen if you keep using worn-out spark plugs. These are performance issues. If your bike's running isn't optimal, then it's likely because of your spark plug. It could be that they're to blame for lower engine power or lack of responsiveness when cranking the throttle. If you notice performance issues with your bike, then this is often an indicator that it may be time to change your dirt bike spark plugs. But in some cases, it will only affect certain areas, so you'll have to determine whether or not these factors are due to a bad spark plug or something else in the ignition system. Higher risk of getting stranded. Aside from just having performance problems on your dirt bike, another thing that can happen if you use worn-out spark plugs is getting stranded out on the trails. If your spark plug causes any sort of problem with your engine while riding, then it's possible to get stuck in some pretty undesirable situations. You'll have to be able to fix these problems yourself or pay someone else to do so, but either way, this is not a fun time. Possible damage to other parts. If you continue using bad spark plugs for too long without changing them, there's a chance they may affect other parts of your dirt bike. If this happens, you'll need the help of a mechanic to look over your entire engine and ensure all systems are working properly again after the spark plug affected them. Higher emissions. If your dirt bike is running on an old and worn-out spark plug, then it's likely that you're spewing out more emissions than necessary. Replacing worn-out components, such as the dirt bike spark plugs, can help reduce engine emissions to a healthy level again. This is great for the environment. All in all, there are many reasons why changing your dirt bike spark plugs often is better than letting them wear down or go bad over time. But knowing when they become bad enough to affect performance, damage other parts of your engine, or cause problems with your overall ride experience may be hard to determine without having certain baseline knowledge about these components. So make sure you know how long dirt bike spark plugs last and check them frequently after a couple of rides. This way, you'll always have a baseline to compare to when they're going bad. How much does it cost to replace dirt bike spark plugs? Replacing dirt bike spark plugs can be one of the most expensive maintenance tasks that you do to your ride. If it's just a matter of changing out worn-out spark plugs, then this shouldn't cost too much. But if there are other problems with your engine that may have been caused by your old and worn-out dirt bike spark plugs, then this will make things more expensive. But whether or not replacing them is cheap or not really depends on where you get them from. A new set of high-quality dirt bike spark plugs can cost anywhere from $20 all the way up to $100, so finding some good deals while searching around is highly recommended. Overall, replacing your dirty, worn-out dirt bike spark plugs isn't too expensive, but it can get expensive if you need to replace other parts of your engine that wear out because of the old spark plugs.